run ongoing. Markets has projected a fuel price hike. There's also NNPCL destroying over 34 illegal refineries in 1 week. We also have companies struggling to meet obligations, says NBC. And then on Nairametrics, we have CBN removing the exchange rate cap for international money transfer operators. Right, we're also looking at the Naira falling to a record low of 1,490 Naira to a dollar at the official market. We also have the NGX ending January with striking 35.3% surge in all share index.
And also talking about some more headlines we're talking about today right here in Business Today. We'll talk about the Port-Harcourt refinery that is set for a test run at the moment. And despite the price hike that is being speculated by marketers, we'll tell you what Nigerians should be expecting on that particular one. And also, we will also tell you about Festus Keyamo, who is now eyeing 40 billion naira to procure upgrades and gadget equipment for airports nationwide. This is from talking about aviation business. And aside other issues that are in the news right now, we'll also talk about the probing of Nigerian Air deal, still on Festus Keyamo, still on the aviation sector, as well as talking about other news as well. With Naira, so many stories to share today on Business Today.
All right, let's first of all check out our first segment.
Here is our business quote for the day.
All right, so the business quote for this morning is: to be successful, you must act big, think big, and talk big. To be successful, you must act big, think big, and talk big. Some people will say, Simeon, that this is what's that thing called? You must package. This is your packaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you want to go talk to some individuals, you know that for some reason someone wouldn't give you a multi-billion dollar, multi-million naira project if you walk into his office looking like a church rat.
Very
Yes.
true.
So you must package yourself. It's different from lying, because you must look well.
Fake it till you make it. That's
No,
what
that's
people
it. That's the thing I'm talking about. It's not faking it though. It's not faking it.
It's all
This
big.
is you already see who you are. You have envisaged that Omo, I'm going to be big.
It's just
And
like,
in order to fit into that shoe
Uh-huh.
of you being big, you are being big in your dressing, you're being big in your thinking as well. Even in the kind of business reforms that you take, the kind of business deals that you make, you are thinking big, as opposed to faking it. You don't get any money for accounts, but you they lie. That's a different thing entirely.
So in other words, do not lie. Rather think big and talk big and act big, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, some people see it as lying, because I've heard people go for business, defense. Possibly you submitted a proposal and then you start imagining deals in the quest to defend your business and make people feel you're big, and you've actually done a couple of contracts for big firms. You now start mentioning names and start throwing figures. We've done this, 10 million naira, 20, 50 million on our packaging.
So where do you draw the line between lying and actually thinking big and acting big?
Where you draw the line is ensure you can actually think big and talk big without lying. You can actually talk about projections, because a lot of people weren't talking about big. Maybe you want to defend your business, you start talking about things, imagining things that you've not done. Why don't you talk about it in formal projections? Like you're projecting that this business is going to churn this out based on what you've been able to pull through and some of the things you've been able to inject into the business, rather than lying and putting figures. But whatever rocks your boat, if you have to throw the big figures, just throw it. But make sure while you're throwing it, and if you're being handed down the business or whatever it is, you deliver quality. Not speak big, think big, act big, and then at the end of the day you cannot deliver it. You fall short of it.
All right, we're starting with the Port-Harcourt refinery, the oil sector. The Port-Harcourt refinery test run is ongoing, and marketers are projecting a fuel price hike. Port-Harcourt refinery test run currently ongoing. Marketers project a fuel price hike. Now, the federal government on Wednesday said the Port-Harcourt refining company was still being test run, adding that refined petroleum products from the plant would hit the market soon. It disclosed this at a briefing in Abuja as oil marketers expressed worry that the recent crash of the naira against the United States dollar might lead to a hike in the pump prices of refined petroleum products. They specifically wondered how the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited would continue to supply PMS, popularly called petrol, at the current cost, considering the fact that $1 now equals 1,450 naira. Meanwhile, speaking about the Port-Harcourt refinery during an event in Abuja, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Heineken Lukbobiri, told journalists that the plant was still being test run. Recall that on December 21st, 2023, the federal government had announced that mechanical completion of rehabilitation work on Area 5 plant of the Port-Harcourt Refining Company in Rivers State. It also stated that the first phase of the plant had been completed, as the facility would start refining 60,000 barrels of crude oil after the Christmas break. This, however, did not happen. But when asked about the status of the facility on Wednesday, Lukbobiri replied, "The mechanical aspect of the Port-Harcourt refinery has been completed and they are still test running." Yesterday, the MD of the refinery was here because I had asked him what was going on. These were projects that are fundamental to our survival economically, and I believe that very soon products will start coming from there. But there are several components in that gigantic structure that will take time mechanically to finalize for products to start coming.
I would like you to take the last part of that statement again, and that's where I will anchor my conversation this morning.
There are several components in that gigantic structure that will take time mechanically to finalize for products to start coming.
Basically, so what they're trying to tell you, they're giving you excuses as to how and why, we might not see the Port-Harcourt refinery, churning out PMS or even other products as well, aside fuel, which we call PMS. So the truth is, we've actually stated this in this country. There is this thing that some government officials do, where they try or tend to inaugurate projects even before its completion. Most times when we see projects being flagged off, yes, there's always a flag off so that certain things will happen, and then there's a part they call inauguration. Remember, this same Port-Harcourt refinery, we were promised that it will start refining and, giving out fuel in December. And this is February, 2 months down the line. We're still hearing stories that, we're on phase 5 of it. And of course, this is a gigantic project. And as a result of gigantic project, we won't be able to, products won't start coming out until all these components are being put together. So when you look at all of this and you start analyzing all of this, you start seeing the excuses, the lame excuses they are giving to us. Now, for every project manager, if you're a project manager, you should understand that when you are doing a project, first thing you put into consideration is the risk. You factor so many things. I cannot get the exact English they use for describing it, but what it means basically is, what would you do? This is the proposed date that this will start functioning. What happens if it doesn't function? So this is where you now, as a project manager, you now start planning so as to mitigate any issue that might arise that we might not start at that particular day. This is what we should start putting in place now so that doesn't happen. That is what you see in other climes. But in Nigeria, we heavily depend on excuses as to why certain things cannot work and why it will not work. Didn't they know that the project is gigantic in the first place? Don't they know that refurbishing certain parts of the refinery that wasn't working or bringing in parts that had to be imported would take certain period of time? Didn't they factor all of this before coming out to tell Nigerians, by December we'll kick off, fuel will be pouring and all of that? And now in February, this as at December 31st, they're now telling us, oh, it's a gigantic thing. We are doing it in phases. This is why products cannot come out at a particular time. Bunch of excuse makers. Those are the set of leaders we have in this country, and it's about time we start holding these people accountable.
It's not all of them now.
I say those are the leaders, not all. Some leaders are doing this.
Well, I actually quite understand.
And you heard the statement they're saying that independent marketers are now projecting increase in the price of fuel, that we might not buy fuel at 660.
It's really interesting to me because fuel has gone up to about 1,500 approximately, and looking at that, you begin to wonder what effect it has on a product that are locally refined, because the entire point was to remove that
the cost
dependency
of,
dependency on the dollar is actually what I'm even referring to. The dependency on the dollar, because the only reason why the dollar should affect our oil in any way is if we're exporting. So if you're selling out to other countries the refined product, then we should be getting more money, because if we convert that dollar to naira, it's supposed to be a lot more coming into the country. But now we are knocking off that exportation process, the entire process of exporting to refine and then importing, and then we're calculating the landing cost and all of that of the petrol. So we are eliminating that completely with the launching of the Port-Harcourt refinery. So I do not understand why the hike in the naira as against the dollar should affect a petroleum that is locally refined. Make it make sense at this point.
Anyways,
why should it affect it in any way? Why should it affect the landing cost of petrol? That 660 naira that Nigerians are spending right now to a liter is still not enough. How does it make sense? The math is not mathing at this point.
It's not mathing at all. And of course, looking at the projected hike price of fuel as indicated by marketers, you will not blame them for projecting this and also looking at the figures, even though we know that there's what they call, some have actually called this pseudo subsidy. Basically what it means is despite the variation in naira to a dollar, when looking at the landing cost of petrol, the government will actually pay the difference. So fuel stays at 660 across several filling stations, and 617 or 613 as it may at NNPCL fuel station. But something not to be done with the petroleum sector in this country. So many things shrouded in secrecy that Nigerians demand an answer to. And away from that, let's talk about the naira that's depreciating in value. And so far, according to reports by the Naira Metrics, in January of 2024, we've seen the naira depreciate by about 37.6% at the official market. And at the close, at the end of the month of January, the dollar closed at to the naira at 1,455 naira 59 kobo. And this is 37.6% depreciation in just 1 month. And according to some of the data we've seen the exchange rate close at the end of December 2023 at 907 naira to a dollar, and in 1 month it's now 1,455 naira to the dollar. And even at the black market, the exchange rate is also depreciated, going from about 1,215 naira to 1,470 naira to the dollar, which represents about 17.3% depreciation month to date. And looking at this, Nigerians who have been grappling with this month-long depreciation of naira, as we've seen the demand continue to outpace supply across markets, and it's really worrisome. And we've seen the CBN forex policy action that they are trying to put in place, and CBN in trying to actively address the issues of foreign currency speculation, the hoarding by Nigerian banks. Even recently they released a new circular which introduced guidelines aimed at reducing the risk associated with some of this practice that some of these Nigerian banks and even currency speculators are now doing. And they are noting that some commercial banks hold long-term positions in forex with the hope of profiting from currency depreciation. So the banks are also culpable in the problem we are having with our currency depreciating, because they are waiting to have profit out of it, hoping that they are speculating that the naira will keep, devaluing. And by that, they get more money as as opposed to them releasing some of this. So some of this foreign exchange problems, some of this monetary policies issues we have in the country, it has to do with some commercial banks. And it's time CBN start fishing out those commercial banks that are engaging in this hurtful and harmful practice against our own naira.
All right, we have another headline. Nigeria's debt service to revenue ratio hits 4-year low. Nigeria's debt service to revenue ratio hits a 4-year low. Now, Nigeria's debt service to revenue ratio dropped to the lowest in 4 years for the first 9 months of 2023, largely on the back of the federal government reforms. This is according to analysis done by Business Day. Now, analysis of the data from the Budget Office of the Federation shows that debt servicing bill in Africa's biggest economy gulped over 66.9% of the total revenue of 8.65 trillion naira that was made in the first 9 months of the period in review, lower than 99.3% in the same period of 2022. Experts are saying that the fuel subsidy removal and the unification of all segments of the foreign exchange market, which have increased revenue inflows for the government, have also improved the fiscal space and the allocation of more funds for capital projects to boost economic growth. Last year was a reverse from the previous trends because revenue growth was driven by the removal of oil subsidy and the unification of the foreign exchange market. Adeola Adenikinji, a professor of economics and president of the Nigerian Economic Society, has said. He added that the government will now have more revenue to undertake more activities, either in terms of infrastructure or commitments to contractors and workers as well. All right, since the President Bola Tinubu announced petrol subsidy removal during his inauguration, pump prices have tripled. While the value of the naira has plunged following the floating of the currency as well. So looking at all this, what does that mean for our debt servicing to revenue ratio?
Talking about Nigeria's debt profile, it is really sad to see that Nigeria's debt service to revenue ratio, is getting low. Our debt profile is increasing. When I mean debt profile, I mean, at all levels. Talking about the national level, that's from the federal government even to the point of the state government, because state governments too, they are borrowing. They are borrowing from the CBN, and also some are even borrowing, from international funders organizations as well. So when you look at our debt to, revenue ratio, it is even without even looking at data from even the MBS or any data, giving bureau of the government or even private organizations. It is commonsensical that you will know that the revenue Nigeria is generating is not even at par with the loan and the debt we have at the moment. And you get to ask yourself, how do we balance this? Because the more your debt burden increases, the lesser it is for you to even get more loans. I don't know if you saw the report some time ago where I think it was China, or I can't remember the exact country right now, that said it wasn't going to borrow Nigeria monies. And that's because at the end of the day, for you to, they check your credit worthiness. And when they check your credit worthiness, what it does for you is look at all the credit you've collected in the past couple of, in a particular period of time, and then see your compliability, how you've been able to comply and pay some of those debts going so far. And it's so sad that in the case of Nigeria, it's the case of borrowing money from Lapo to pay loan credit that you've earlier borrowed from. So now, because you've collected facility from a particular person, and your revenue is not even enough to clear those, the backlog of the loans or credit you've collected, you now have to go to another credit facility, collect a facility, and use part of it to offset a particular loan. And this has been the trend with the country Nigeria. And it is necessary we look internally look at ways we can generate or increase our revenue. Some of it, the truth is, let's be truthful to ourselves so we don't go home and fan ourselves and feel relaxed. Some of this policy in raising revenue for the country will definitely affect the average Nigerian. But where it has become a worry for Nigerians is that we are the ones bearing the brunt, and those at the helms of affair are living large. They are collecting SUVs. They are traveling every day for private trips and private visits. Some are even going to a particular country for birthday celebration, all in the name of going to meet their prime minister. So when you see that there is no commiserate, burden felt on the part of the leaders as Nigerians, the average Nigerians is feeling it. And that's why Nigerians are always kicking against certain policies that will help internally generate revenue. On to the point that an average Nigerian is seeing that, okay, our leaders are now becoming accountable. They are cutting they are cutting down the cost of governance. Now we can align ourselves with whatever financial policy or revenue generating policy of the government. Let's all find a way and clear this debt burden. Maybe some of the monies we now borrow can now be used for critical infrastructures in the country. Until that is done, we will keep borrowing. And the truth is, there's no crime in borrowing, but the crime is borrowing and not being able to pay
back. All right, I think that's pretty much all that we have today for you. Thank you so much for listening to Business Today on Voice of the People 96.1 FM. At the top of the hour, that's from 10 to 11 a.m. We've got vacancies. You will do well to stay tuned to that. All right,